Vanessa, welcome to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast. I have wanted you as a guest on here forever, and I'm so glad that we finally made it.
Thank you.
You got onto my radar with your Aisling. Am I saying it correctly? Aisling C series.
I think it's Ashling. So
Okay.
it's an Irish word. So, and I'm obviously not Irish. so I believe it's Ashling. It means dream, according to the internet.
This year, you released book 2 in your Immortal Reverie series. So you've got these 2 series going on. And I've seen you are discussing on your socials quite a bit, like, your publishing schedule. Like, I'm talking years in advance. Don't you want to tell us, like, what is your thought process? How do you keep track of it all, especially when you're writing a 5-book series?
Well, a lot of it is just knowing my limits. So I learned the hard way when I was writing the end of the Ashling C series. I had jumped into writing Until the Stars Fall because I wanted to put them out. I wanted to see, can I put 2 books out in a year? And I did not take a break between the books. I was writing book 1 of the second series as I was editing book 3 of the last one, and I completely burned myself out. So then once book 1 came out and I had to get into book 2, I knew I needed a break, but then I was still trying to recover from burnout. And so book 2 was a lot harder. I couldn't market as much. That launch had to be a lot smaller just because of my just energy reserves. And I learned I can't do 2 a year. I really need that break in between.
I want to just talk a little bit about author burnout, because to anyone that follows you, you are super transparent about that on your page. I have discussed this on the podcast previously. I'm seeing more and more, not just author burnout, but regular bookstagrammer burnout as well, because we're kind of pushing ourselves too hard. So if anyone's listening to this and they're like, hey, I'm actually relating with what Vanessa's saying, what would be your number one piece of advice to anyone dealing with burnout?
First off, rest, take a break. I think the biggest resource for me was just to go it, like, make sure I wasn't going it alone, because a lot of times there's a lot of guilt that rolls into burnout because you feel like you're letting everyone down, you're having to push back deadlines. I work with Becca Syme over at Write Better Faster, the Better Faster Academy, and she has a great book on burnout because she's gone through it herself and how to claw your way out of there. And she talks a lot about the phases of it and how to determine if you're in burnout or if you're just overwhelmed. It's a long process and it's not linear. It's very much you'll make improvements and you'll start to get better, and then you'll like kind of fall back again. I had to close my merch shop. I had to take a lot of stuff off my plate. I'm very type A and tend to just have a lot going on. And I think it took some really honest look at like what I was doing to myself and how I was not taking care of my health as well. So I had to make sure I was sleeping, I was exercising, I was eating, because those were all things that in order to get the books out, I was going to bed at 10 and waking up at 3 or 4 to get the book written before I was having to be a mom. And it just took a toll. And so it's just be patient with yourself if you're in burnout and know that your readers will be there. And this industry is just so fickle anyway. Like the only constant is that it's always changing.
So one of the authors that I talk to on a regular basis, we were discussing about our generation, how we've kind of picked up this, if we relax, we're lazy mentality. We can recognize it. We're almost trying to unlearn it, which it's hard because we're like, hey, maybe the day where keep in mind that I don't have kids, so I can say this, the day where I spend the day on the couch binge watching my favorite series, it doesn't mean I'm lazy. It just means I need a break. And it's taken me, I would say, since I left the house to now in my mid-30s to get to that point of realization. But even then, I'm still like, shit, could I be writing another book? Could I be doing this? Could I be doing, like, you almost question yourself to the point of insanity.
I always hate it when people are like, well, give yourself grace. And I know they mean well.
Yeah.
But I'm working through a lot of past habits and just past voices in my head, because when I feel like I'm giving myself too much grace and letting myself be lazy. So it's almost like this thought in my head is saying, you're not just resting, you're taking advantage of the need for rest, and you're resting too much. So it's at some point you do have to say, okay, now I need to like actually just say, I'm just going to rest forever. I mean, but I have not written, I wrote 400 words the other day for the first time in like 8 months. I mean, my husband's been deployed since April. So, and I don't do well when he's gone. My kids will tell you that. But it's
8 months. Has it been that long? Is it just
no.
that I'm so used to you sharing writing updates? I'm like, I'm confused because I'm like, the math is not mathing for me.
Well, so normally my breaks between books, like once I put one book out, I usually take about 3 months where I'm reading or I'm focusing on other things. I'm focusing on marketing, but I might like write here and there on the next book. And this time it's just been, and I knew that's why you asked about planning my schedule. We've known about this deployment for years. And I knew that I would not be able to write during this 5 months that he's been gone. And so I took that pressure off of myself and I said, this next book has to be delayed. So it has to be more like 18 months after the last one instead of 12, which is just really hard.
But I want to like just focus on that for a second, because the fact that you're so honest with yourself about those things, you're just not like, oh, let's just give it my best shot and see what happens and set yourself up for failure. You're like, cool, here's the reality. Let's do the best with what I've got. And I think there's a power in that. I really do.
But I will say I'm not immune to comparison, jealousy, like all of the, because, you know, I have friends who they can write fast, they can write well, and they can write fast, even with children. I look at these other authors and I'm like, you have 4 kids like I do. You have a husband that works like a lot of hours. Why can I not do the same thing you're doing? Why can I not put out the same amount of work? And it's just, we're different. We're totally different people. We have different strengths. Our brains work differently. We have different baggage we're carrying. For me, I can't get into that creative that creative mindset is so hard for me to get into when I'm stressed.
I don't love that you struggle with comparison, but I do love that you brought that up. There was actually a stage at the beginning of last year. So keep in mind, I shifted from the YA into the NA space. Because when I started, I fucking knew nothing. I still question what I know at times, if I'm being honest. The shift from one category into other was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And let me just say, it came with some along the way. It was so bad to the point. So with my YA books, I couldn't afford an editor. But when I moved into the NA space, I finally could. And I've since gone back and fixed it. But I hired the wrong editor. I realized that my mistake was I didn't check the genres that she edited. So primarily romantasy. So she was coming at me from a romantasy angle. I write urban fantasy with romance subplots. Okay. I am not a crier at all. Like I actually get angry. I have like 2 default settings. Okay. I started crying so badly because for me, like I had made myself vulnerable to this editor. And she basically, and I'm paraphrasing it, told me that my book is shit and I need to rewrite it. That's what it came down to. And I messaged Jordan and I was like, I'm canning it. I'm done. And she's like, no, you're not. She's like,
no, you're not.
Shit right now. And anyway, now we're fine.
We all have different processes. I have friends who vomit on the screen, like it's just nonstop words. And so they can get 5,000 words and maybe 3,000 of them are usable. But me, I'm like, I sit for 2 hours and I get 300. And I'm like, those are good.
I work on like a chapter structure. I work with stickies, right? Like this. Now, this is more of a guideline for me. Like sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't. And for me, I'm like, I sit here and I wouldn't say agonize. That's maybe dramatic. I sit here and I'm like, does this make sense? If not, take it out. Like, look at it. Like, does it make sense in the wider plot, in the chapter? Yep. Like, what's the
You're
story?
editing as you go. And that's, well, to a point. Kind of. Not like grammatically. You know what I mean? Like, story-wise.
Self-editing, yeah, from that perspective. I'm like, fuck the grammar. That's what the editor.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the editor.
Yeah.
I agree.
She goes, do you want to know why this is wrong? And I'm like, I literally don't care. Pick it. Pick something that works for you in your line of work, and I'm happy to go with it.
Yeah, I don't care why it's right. I just want to know, is it right?
Yeah, exactly. I want to take it back to your Immortal Reverie series. So recently, you updated your covers for book one and book two.
Mhm.
Now, I am maybe a little bit biased, but I loved your old covers and I do love your new covers as well. I actually reference your covers a lot when it comes to design references because of how, I almost want to say, unique they are. They don't look like every other romantasy. And that, I think
Yeah.
that's really important in the industry today. But I want to hear, how did you get to the decision of making the switch mid-series and what were some of the steps that you took?
We're going to reference Jordan so much in this podcast. She is my assistant that I don't pay. So she's my unpaid intern. She has been with me for 5 years now, and she and I are constantly looking at what can we do better? What could be the reason why we aren't getting these books out? Why are these books not getting the attention they should? Because we believe in them. We think they're great. We started with changing the blurbs. Um, and that kind of was okay, but what's funny is, okay, I'm an Enneagram 4, so I am a crier. I will cry at the drop of a hat. Like, you just say one thing, and this is something, Jordan's an Enneagram 5. She is not emotional. She said she had been thinking that it was the covers for a few months. Like, she had thought maybe the covers just aren't hitting right for the genre. And she waited. She waited until I asked her. And I said, "Do you think it's the covers?" And she knows, because if she had been the one to say it, I would have cried. And then that makes her uncomfortable, even though she knows me. Like, people don't like it when people cry. And we don't want to make our friends cry, right? So it was, and I knew people loved the original covers. So when I did the Aisling C series, when that designer gave me those covers, it was like jaw-dropping, amazing, perfect, right? And these ones, they were good.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it had been delayed. And so we got to the point where I couldn't really afford to make any like adjustments to it. So we had to kind of go with what came out of that concept. And we ran with it. And I kept looking at them going, I don't think these are right. I don't think they fit the story, because these were, and sometimes I hear this as a negative. Like, I've seen people when they do reels about my books and stuff, and they're like, well, it's a romance set in a fantasy world, as if that's like makes it almost sounds like it's a negative connotation. And I don't know. It is what they are. Those are fantasy romances. So they are romance plots, but in a fantasy world with fantasy background stories. And the covers just didn't seem to hit the romance part of it correctly. And it seems like these books just aren't finding the right audience. Because I know when it does, people rave about them. And I'm trying to find the right people. So it's a matter of how do we fit these covers to the genre while still keeping them unique enough that they stand out.
Yeah.
And so that was a really hard decision, because I don't like making people switch covers halfway through a series. But then it was also a financial decision too, because the original designer is a little bit more expensive. And I had to think, can I afford this going forward when these books just aren't selling as well as they should be?
I've also spoken to Jordan about what does well in the market, and Silky Designs, I've commissioned her for a custom cover coming up. And she was saying to me, for urban fantasy specifically, that the market is changing towards. So this is my latest cover, right? And I've got the pink and the orange. In the past, this was typically a romantasy type of cover, right?
Yeah.
Not
I
anymore.
wouldn't think urban fantasy. Is this what urban fantasy is going to?
Correct. And I had no idea when I commissioned these covers. This is not Sulky Designs, by the way. This is someone else. I just wanted something different. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm small enough, I can anyway. And when Sulky saw my covers, she was like, oh, but this is actually the trend for what is happening now in urban fantasy. And I was like, you're joking, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, like if you think about Laura, and I think I'm saying her name correctly, Laura Thalasset.
Yeah, I don't know. I suck at pronouncing names,
Right?
but I know who you're talking about.
But so if you look at like her Bewitched series, and then you look at Lee Bardugo from Lee go. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Good
Yep. Yep.
nine house, just with
Mhm.
the object based thing. So there's definitely a shift that's starting to happen with urban fantasy type books. So to bring it back to your cover, I understand the thought process of what is doing well in the market right now. Is do we need to make some adjustments? But as well, it is so expensive at times.
Well, and I mean, I won't lie, the finances did it. It was a lot of the money. I mean, because I've part of coming out of burnout was when you don't have time to market, you're going to see a drop in sales. And so then you have to look at, okay, what's my infrastructure? Can I keep paying an assistant? No, I can't. Can I keep doing these things? And um, when the price difference is so drastic between designers, it's just sometimes you have to make these decisions. What I do worry about, because I'm not necessarily worried, but it's in the back of my mind that I am putting these books out so like far from each other. Like the last book comes out in 2028.
Oh, well.
And will these covers still work in that market in 2028? So it's like they might not, but you kind of just have to hope for the best. I can't, because the reality is I can't put these books out faster, not without making them shit. So, I mean, you just take a gamble. But what's interesting, like the book covers for the Ashling C series, I think still work for romantic fantasy. So I'm hoping that we won't see such a drastic shift in the romantasy covers. I'm almost more worried that the genre is going to take a dive and then not do so well.
When I joined Bookstagram, romantasy was like up here. Okay, and we still have our hardcore romance readers. They love their romance in whatever subgenre we want to give it to them. But I almost see them start to question, is there something else? So, for example, I've seen an uprise in urban romantasy. I'm seeing that become more and more popular. And it's funny, you referenced Jordan, but she has been saying to me for at least 2 years now, urban fantasy is going to have its moment because people are starting to question outside of romantasy, which I quite interesting. But Vanessa, I want to chat about your faith for a second. To anyone that has followed you for more than 5 minutes, they will know that you are a Christian woman. And I haven't brought up religion on the podcast yet, just purely because there hasn't been much of an opportunity, if I'm being honest. I do want to ask you, how has your faith impacted your writing, if anything, considering you are writing fantasy?
There's it's kind of like walking a tightrope, because especially when you're in this genre that tends to be very spice heavy. My husband is like, I mean, I have his last name. It's his name on the book, right? Basically. And so he doesn't read them. I don't ever ask him to read them, but I do need him to be on board with whatever I put in them. And so he and I talk quite a bit about how far are we willing to go with like a spicy scene, or what are we comfortable with writing. And for him, he's the one who keeps me grounded, because it can be really easy when you're watching what everyone else is doing to feel that pressure. Like, I need to put more spice. I need to go further. I need to do more in order to get ahead. And he's like, no, like, remember what our values are. Remember where we are faith-wise. And he always brings it back to, what's your intention? So what's the intention with that content? And it's something I wrestle with every day. I ask myself, did I do the right thing putting those scenes into these books? Yeah. Did I do something wrong faith-wise? Because you see constantly on the other side of the spectrum, the Christian authors who are like, everything needs to be like no sex, no intimacy, no swearing, because that's not honoring God and everything. And I'm like, but I'm like, if I can behead someone or I can torture someone in my books, why can't my characters have these moments? As long as I'm writing them in a way that to me is very authentic to the characters, and not, this is what my husband, he's like, if you're doing it to turn your readers on, like, no, like, we don't want to profit off of turning people on, right? So he's like, do it for the story. So for me, it's always, I follow the characters.
Yeah.
What makes sense for the characters is what I'm going to write. I do think I'm going to start pulling back. And I see this a lot with my other friends who write romantasy, they've written spice in past books, and they're Christians, and they're saying, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so I'm starting to see my Christian romantasy author friends like pulling back. So that's really where it hits most, is that where's the line on the content?
I haven't necessarily disclosed this in the past, and so I'll do it in your episode. I have a complicated relationship with a religion. My issue is not with God. My issue is with the church.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're not alone.
So for me, the two are quite in my head. And as I go through my own, let's call it version of faith, a big part of I have to believe that I would not be like this if God didn't want me to be this way. So it's kind of like a logic like that. At the same time, I remember being a 16-year-old girl. Now, I've got a lot going on here, right? And a 40-year-old man coming to me in 35-degree heat. I think that's about 90 for you.
Yeah.
That I needed to wear a turtleneck because I was distracting him or something, and I'm like, so
that's your
yeah, I was like, what is wrong with you? I personally don't give a shit about spice. Like, you can have it, you cannot have it. Like, whatever floats your boat, that's fine. But I tend to fall in a similar category to you, where I really do struggle to write spice. But for me, it has to mean something to the story. I'm not just going to slap in a smut scene and call it a day. And don't get me wrong, love smut. There's a place for it as well, just maybe not in my books. Like, I recently read this Lights Out by Vanessa Allen. And let me tell you, it was a fucking great time. Okay, it was fun. I looked at some of those scenes and I was like, how is that even possible? I was like, I questions. Okay, but like, you walk into her story, you know exactly what you're going to get. It's a filthy, smutty time, and I rated it 5 stars because it was a great piece of work. You know.
Yeah, it's really hard from what I hear from everybody, like when you're in that realm and you write tons of spice, it's super easy to market, right? Because you know how to market your stuff. When you're clean, which I hate that word, but it is an industry standard word that people use. So they have an easier time marketing because they can say, I'm a sweet romance, I'm, closed door, like nothing more than a kiss. And then you've got us in the middle who are like, we're kind of spicy, but not, we don't want to say we're spicy because we don't want to target the people who want tons of spice, but we can't market to the people who want no spice. And so it's a really difficult place to be marketing wise. I try to warn people because, I have people from my church who read my books and I have to be like, these aren't Christian books. Okay. And they're not for teenagers. Like these are for adults. And but I have to say, if you do not read romance, these will feel super explicit to you. For those of us who have read explicit, spicy stuff, it's super tame compared to what we've seen out there. So like mine, the second book in the Immortal Reveries is spicier because the characters that's just their personalities. Whereas book 1, they were very hopeless romantics, like idealist, just the romantic type. So they don't do it until the end.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to be doing it in the middle. Whereas like the second book, those characters are doing it, but I still keep my language tame. Yeah. But the actions are a little bit spicier. So it's sometimes I'm like, did I really need to do that? And then I think, yes, the characters needed to do that. So
listen, if there's one thing all authors agree on is that the characters, they demanded, we just
they're in charge.
Yeah. We're just making sure that their story is told. So I was quite surprised to see that you used to be an engineer. So what type, if I may ask?
Systems. So it's a lot of math. So not computers. It's kind of like it's the type of engineering that makes all the other types of engineering work together. The way I had it explained to me when I was choosing my major was like on a space shuttle, you'll have electrical systems, mechanical systems, etc. And systems engineering is the one that helps them talk to each other and work together.
It is surprising me more and more to see how many former engineers that we have in the book
They're
space. Like, I just had a civil engineer on the podcast the other day, just by the way.
Yeah. Well, Nisha Tooley was an engineer as well. So, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your words, how did you go from systems engineering to writing full time?
I was working at a defense company after college. And so that was my first job out of college. Met my husband. I was what you'd call the breadwinner for a while he was finishing school and everything. Then he got deployed and blah, blah, blah. He got accepted to flight school for the Army, which required, it's a 1.5 year school. He had to move to Alabama. And so I had just gotten a promotion at my company, and we made the decision, I will take a leave of absence and I'll go with you. So I was a stay-at-home mom, had our second baby down there. And when we moved back, when he was done, we didn't want to go back to Colorado. So we came to Wyoming, he's in the Wyoming National Guard. And we were trying to buy a house, but we didn't have any jobs. So I had to get whatever job I could find that would allow me, like, I had these credentials. So I was a data analyst for a contractor for the state and everything. Anyway, I worked for the state doing data analysis and running reports, and I was their senior analyst. It was fun because it was a lot of puzzles, but then I got to be creative too because I did all of their annual reports and their like pretty documents. So I got to make data pretty. So that was hitting that creative outlet that I needed. And I was writing on the side. So I was doing that job and writing, and I quit probably a month after On These Black Sands came out. And it wasn't because that book like blew up. It wasn't because like all of a sudden I'm a debut fantasy author and I did so well. It was, I at that point, I hated my job. I didn't want to do it anymore. But I didn't quit to write. So we got to the point where we had 4 kids. I was trying to work and write and make it to all the appointments and make it to all these things. And it was just such a headache and it was so much stress. And we said, well, why don't you quit and we'll have you home full time, which people think is crazy when you have kids in school. But they have so much going on, and we have so much going on at home that I find I'm still just as busy as I was when I had the job. My therapist, actually, he had to remind me. He was like, you did not quit to be an author. You quit to be a mom. And the author gig is a great bonus to being able to stay home. And I am very privileged, I will say that, because my husband makes enough money to support our family to where I don't have to worry about the books not selling as much as if it was paying the bills. So for us, that author money is paying off student loans, paying off car loans, it's paying for vacations, it's doing this extra stuff that we're able to do with it.
I do want to ask you, and I ask every guest this question, what is your bookish hot take?
I was so planning to be ready for this question. I was like, I need to come up with something because I try to be very professional about, like, I don't want to ever put down colleagues or anything. If so, I don't like to say I hate certain tropes because I don't ever want to make an author second guess writing a trope that they want to write, right? So just because I hate it doesn't mean. Probably the biggest hot take I have, I cannot stand the trend of having the female main character constantly thinking, oh, he's so hot. Oh, look at his muscles. Oh, he's so, like, are we all a bunch of vapid bimbos? We can be attracted to someone and still have brains and not go into this, oh, dreamy-eyed. I mean, do we all think like that? It seems so strange to me that we have these very strong, very independent, feminine rage female main characters, and then they become these, like, just all they can think about is doing him when he comes into the room. And it just rubs me the wrong way.
So,
And which I really don't want to like make anyone feel bad for writing that. It's just, it's my own.
But I will come in and say I agree with you, and that's a big reason actually why I didn't write in romantasy to begin with. I actually love and that's why I said to you, I have romance subplots. So in my one series, there's a very important relationship for a reason. Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll go with that. but they're still their own people. They're still doing their own thing. What's the explanation? If you pull the relationship out, the story still stands on its own.
Right.
I understand that we read fantasy for escapism. Don't get me wrong. But for me, how can I escape to this fantasy realm if I don't understand the FMC because she's boy crazy?
I mean, I've been boy crazy since I was 12. So don't get me wrong. I can understand, but to me, these are like in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe they're 500-year-old fae. It was my biggest issue with A Court of Silver Flames.
Yeah.
I DNF'd that book after 200 pages because I loved those characters and I felt like they just became just shallow, horny shells of people. I just thought they had so much more depth earlier in the series, and I want more. I want more from my characters than just I want to do ya all the time.
I think it was episode 2 of season 1 where we actually spoke about SJM and her success. The question went along the lines of, why do you think she's seen so much success if her stories are, I mean, they're not massively unique, let's be honest. We've seen stories like that over and over again. And the guest said it's because she does the found family trope really well. So if you look at what she's created, specifically in the ACOTAR stories with the night court and everything, sure, I don't like Clara at all. I think she irritates the shit out of me, a whiny little bitch. Like, okay, cool, we all have issues. Like, get with the
Right.
program. But for me, I'm a Nesta girly, and I know that is a somewhat controversial thing for most people.
I
but
love Nessa.
yeah,
I
like,
loved her.
yeah, like she was just, I was like, that's my girl. But the point of that is SJM has created something for everyone in that. Even though I didn't connect with Farah, I was like, cool, next. I'm like, don't even talk to me about Elaine. She doesn't even deserve a mention. So like from a found family perspective, she has created these incredibly relatable, rich, as you're saying, characters. So even if ACOTAR wasn't necessarily my thing, I will tell you, I love Payne Cole's The Kindred Curse saga. I am frothing to get my hands on book 4 when I think she's releasing it this year actually, because I know a lot of people bitch about DM, the FMC, but I was like, I get it because I made stupid decisions when I was in my 20s. And it's such a relief to see in fantasy someone is like pushing that, like not just the same as you saying, oh, I'm a horny teenager. Like, when can I sleep with him kind of thing.
Yeah. I think seems like a lot of the authors in this genre are recovering from their own issues with growing up in purity culture or whatever, and they've swung this far, like they've swung all the way to the right, and so it's almost like we're pushing these boundaries as much as we can. And I just don't want us to forget that, like, our female main characters can be more than that.
I fully agree. I've been with my husband. Actually, my mom messaged me today and she was like, are you doing something special on Friday? And I was like, what's happening
What's
on
Friday?
It's like your anniversary. I was like, oh. Like, yeah. So like I've been with my husband now for 14 years in total, married on Friday for 5 of it. 100%. He's the love of my life. Like, I just cannot imagine a world without him in it. Like, that's just not even an option. And I mean, I have walked out of very important meetings at work because he's been calling me. I will always prioritize him above everything else, but I'm still a person. And the definition I went with, and it was a debate I had with my mom once, I am a person that happens to be married. I am not defined by my marriage, because if I cannot be an individual, how can I be a good wife?
Yeah. That's why I like when people say, doesn't your husband read your books? And I'm like, why should he have to? Like, he's not interested in this genre. He listens to me. He brainstorms with me. He's very supportive. When I told him I wanted to publish, he said, okay, but you're going to do it well, and you're going to do it right, and you're not going to quit. So, yeah.
So I said to my husband, so I'm in year 3 now. Okay. So I was like, oh, me naive little indie. I was like, oh, if I make no money, like in the first 2 years, I'm going to call it. At the end of the second year, my husband was like, no, you're not. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I have never seen you so happy. Keep writing. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I was like, tribe has spoken. Let's get to it. Vanessa, I want to talk about book subscription services. This is a relatively newish concept to me. Keep in mind, I am in Amsterdam. Basically, my only options are Fairy Loot, and we all know what that wait list looks like. So now I've seen you speaking on your page in the past about it takes a long time to build these kinds of connections. I know you've had some of your books in book boxes in the past. What are some of the steps that you took to build these connections, and what advice would you give any indies listening?
Don't be afraid to try. It's getting harder to get into the book boxes because they get so inundated with you think the market's saturated, their inbox is saturated just as much. So when I got my foot in the door, so before Ashling C came out, this is the benefit to writing very slowly because I knew it wasn't going to come out until August. I contacted Faye Crate in November beforehand. So I hadn't even, I think I was in the editing process. And they got back to me in January. They asked for a manuscript. And by March, we had a deal where they were going to do the book and they were going to put it in one of their boxes. And I thought, that's incredible because I was a nobody. It was my debut. I had they didn't know who I was at all. They didn't have, at that point, they didn't have, now they have a form that you can fill out if you want to be, considered. Most of them do have those forms. And I just sent them an email and said, here's a proposal. Here's my pitch. Here's what I have coming up. And would you be interested? And I took the shot and it worked. And I think a lot of times, especially with debut authors, they're very unsure. They don't think I think we're seeing a little bit of a change there now. We're seeing more and more authors as they see debuts taking off. They're being a little bit more, what's the word? Confident. That would be I know words. I'm an author. I think it's just tenacity and trying, because they're not going to come to you. You have to let them know. Typically, they're not going to be asking. I got connected to Midnight Whispers. I can't even remember. I'm now friends with the owner. She has my cell phone number. We talk. We chat all the time. Yeah. And I managed to connect with her as she was launching her business. And so I got in early. Bookish Box, I actually submitted on their form. And I don't know how they found me. I got an email actually when they sent me an email through my website. And I was like, that meant they went to my website, to the contact thing on the website to email me about it. And I thought it was a hoax. I thought someone was playing a trick on me because there was no way in hell they were going to be interested. I am extremely lucky. I think I did such a big marketing push for Until the Stars Fall that it got a lot more visibility. Of course, now I'm begging people to find it again. I think that was it was both a blessing and a curse too, because it had so much visibility. I think it got picked up by a lot of readers that were not its target audience. Yeah. It wasn't what they were expecting. It's my biggest seller and my lowest rated.
This is now the second time you've mentioned that, and I actually want to take a little sidebar. Mm-hmm. You talk about your ideal reader specifically for Until the Stars Fall and that series, the Immortal Reverie series. Tell us, who is your ideal reader?
The people who, and I try to figure out the best way to, this is why I suck at marketing. I can't figure out how to put this into words. People who aren't there for the spice, and I know the readers who love these books, they don't even mention the spice. Yeah. When they talk to me. It's just extra frosting on the cake. But they are there for character connection. It's very emotional, very character driven. I don't write a lot of action because I have anxiety. I need those slower moments in between. It's less about punching you in the face with action all the time and that it's nonstop. It's you're going to sit with these characters and get to know them. And these are for people who really want to connect with those characters and really want to savor it. But I also tend to be on the simpler side of world building because I have massive mom brain and it's already complicated enough for me to keep everything straight. And I never wanted, my favorite thing about reading is just losing myself in it without feeling lost. If I'm feeling lost, I will put the book aside because if it's going to take too much, it sounds bad. If it takes too much brain power for me to figure out what's going on and who's what and where's this and how's this working, I don't want to read it because I'm tired.
I can't blame mom brain, but I can blame chemo brain. So I'm going to go with that one. For a long time, like you, I tend to write on the simpler side. I don't want to spend 2 pages telling you how blue his eyes are. Like, his eyes are blue. Move on. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of the beauty about reading, is letting our imagination fill in the gaps.
I've had readers who will ask me questions. They want to know why did this happen, or what was this, and what was happening behind the scenes. I was like, that has nothing to do with the story. It's irrelevant to the plot. Make it up yourself, because a lot of times I don't have the answer because it didn't matter. Like, who cares what the ships were carrying? All you should know is the pirates were doing piratey things, right? They were looting merchant ships. Who cares whether they were getting spices or clothes or jewels or whatever? It doesn't really matter. And I always laugh when people say, oh, your books are so descriptive and I can totally see like the scenes and everything. And I'm like, I put so little description in my books on purpose, because if I could just write dialogue, I would just write dialogue. Description is hard for me. It's just, to me, there's no point. I don't give a shit what color the curtains are, or what is on the wall. And so I have to force myself to describe things, but I try to just give the bare minimum to not overwhelm, but let you kind of build off of it, which is harder for people who can't visualize in their head.
So I love that you said that about descriptions, because that is not my number one sticking point as well. I am trying to work on it to get better, because I understand, like, you need something. I can't just like send you in YOLO and let you figure it out. But on the subject of fantasy books, I do have to ask you, what is one fantasy book that you believe deserves far more love from the Bookstagram community? Can be indie, can be trad, can be high.
That's, because I want to like name all of my friends.
Yeah.
Like all of them, because they all deserve to find their readers. I've been in a reading slump for almost 3 years.
Oh, wow.
It's been bad. And it's not because the books are bad. I've just been coming out of burnout and just can't focus. I'm in the middle of 7 books because I'm such a mood reader now, and it's just a matter of what do I feel like doing. Jenny Hickman and her Myths of Erin series was one that I haven't even finished the last book. So sorry, Jenny. I love her books, and she and I write in similar styles, on the simpler side, more about the connection and less about the world building. But I mean, she's amazing. I'm reading Victoria K. Taylor's Crown of whatever. She's gonna hate me if I don't get her. My brain is not working today.
Wait, I can tell you because I've actually got her as part of a giveaway.
She is such a sweet person, and she deserves all the love.
A Crown of Starch.
See, there's too many words for me to remember. Rachel Shade writes really great adult, but not spicy, and she's working on, they are Jane Austen retellings, but in a fae world. So for those who love Jane Austen, I highly recommend picking them up. It's just there's so many. Well, this is the thing though, like, I feel like what I see a lot on social media is people complain. They try a fantasy romance book because they jump into what's popular and they realize it's not hitting what they want. And then they lump all of romantasy together and they assume all of it is that way. It's a saturated market, but it's such a diverse market that fantasy romance books are so different and widely varying that if one didn't work for you, try someone else.
I'll give you an example of, I think she may have been debuted, don't quote me on that. I remember her name, actually forgot her surname because it's a very long one. She wrote A Vision, which launched earlier this year. I fucking loved that book. Okay, that book actually got me out of a book slump. So it is categorized as romantasy, but it's more urban / dystopian. And I was like, hello, look at how this has been like genre blending situation over here. What she's doing is she's pushing the boundaries, as you're saying. She's trying to be more diverse, inject more life into the romantasy category. And I want to see authors like her succeed. So on that note, I do have to ask, hybrid publishing has gained traction over the last few years as an alternative to community. So For the listeners that don't know, that could mean that an indie author starts in the indie space and they later get picked up for a traditional deal, but they can keep some books in the indie space as well as some books in the trad space. In your mind, what are the benefits of going hybrid instead of remaining just indie?
It's the dream, honestly. A lot of us are hoping to hit that because we're exhausted. We're run ragged, and granted, we're the ones running ourselves ragged, right? We're in charge, but it's a lot. And the reasons that we got into indie, we wanted to be in control, we wanted creative control, we wanted to choose who we worked with, we want to decide, we want that freedom so that if life gets in the way, I'm not tied to certain deadlines, right? But then you get to a point where you're bogged down and you're exhausted and you're struggling and you're clawing your way, trying to get out there. And having that indie outlet, having some of your stuff remain indie keeps you in that space. So you're giving yourself that control. But then trad just opens up other doors, and it's just it's like diversifying your income streams, right? It's a way to, and maybe that's not how you make a lot of money, but it's how you maybe get your name out there and then people go back to your indie backlist. It's really just about taking some of the stuff off our plate. We really want to try getting a team behind us. We've been doing so much of this on our own, even though we have a team, right? We're hiring people, but you're still ultimately the one making all the decisions. I pitched my books to Dreamscape for the audiobooks. And I know some people said that was a mistake. There are reasons it may not have been the best business idea, but for me, producing the audiobooks for the Ashling Sea series was it was extra work that I just couldn't do again. I wanted to just pass that on to someone else. They could take it and they can run with it. And that was just what I needed at the time because I just didn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So it is the dream. I think it's harder than what we may think it is because we see, like, if you're on social media, you see romantasy authors getting deals left and right. And I think it can make you feel like, well, I'm the only one not getting a deal. But I think it's such a small percentage of the romantasy authors out there, but it can feel like there's a new announcement every day. And there are new debut authors taking off every day that you can feel like you're being left behind. And I try to remind myself all the time, like, I'm not being left behind. So I work with Becca Syme. She's I do coaching with her quarterly. And like she's always said, just because you haven't succeeded yet doesn't mean you won't succeed in the future. Just because you haven't taken off yet doesn't mean you won't in the future. And you have no idea which one it'll be. Unfortunately, I got my hopes up with the last book, with book 1, and then it just didn't go where I hoped. And so you just try again. Yeah. And it can be really hard to try again, by the way.
Yeah, like, that's something I can definitely...
There's a reason I have not started on book 3 yet. And just trying to get the energy up to do it again. And, authors will ask, like, does it ever get easier? And I said, no. I equate it to pregnancy, and I know you don't have kids, but like, there's an upside and a downside to knowing what to expect. Because, like, yes, I've been through it before. I've written a book before. I've published before. I know how it goes. But that's a catch-22 because I know how hard it is. I know how much energy it takes. I know. And some authors out there just make it look super easy.
This is where I actually do agree with you. I actually messaged my editor the one night because I drafted The Clash of the Damned before my diagnosis. And then I had to start editing after my diagnosis. So, like, there's like these two versions of me that we're talking about. And I'm very grateful that I had that book to hide in, during this stuff. But the closer, and I do this every single book launch, message my editor in a panic, like, is it good? Is it better than the previous one? I don't want people to think I'm one hit. Like, you go through this whole spiral. And you get more experience, sure. And I think the experience definitely helps. But does it get easier? No, because I do this every single time. And I'm like,
well, and Jordan has to remind me of that every time. Because I will get to a point in the drafting phase where I am convinced I'm not going to finish. I'm convinced it's crap. I'm convinced that it's like, we're just never going to get there. And she's like, you do this with every single book and you always get there. Like you always, we will make sure. And she's my alpha reader. She reads chapters. I don't even self-edit. As soon as I close out a chapter, I send it to her.
Yeah.
Because I need that instant feedback of, are we going in the right place? Is this, even if there's like holes, like there, she laughs at me because I make notes to myself inside it, like, this is crap. Like, figure out a name for this shit over here. I think the benefit is not just knowing what to expect. It's, we are with every book honing our process and becoming more confident. This is what I'd like to see in authors. Own your process. Everyone writes in a different way. Yeah. So don't really just question everything people tell you. It doesn't mean ignore people. It means question, if they're telling me I need to do something, do I really need to do that? And so it's just a matter of, you're learning with every book, how do I do this? What works for me? Do I need to write every day? Or do I need to take days off? Do I need to just put words on the page? Or do I edit in my head? Because that's what I do.
Nikita Bell, she was the first guest I ever had on the podcast. She is a staunch advocate for she edits as she goes. That's what works for her. She will never tell anyone else to do it. She will smash out an entire manuscript, let's say, over her period of time. And I actually just finished alpha reading. Well, she calls it alpha. I think it's more beta because her manuscript is so polished. But she's like, well, that's why my manuscript is polished, because I edit as I go. And like I said to her, I was like, I'm actually nitpicking here. Like, you could ignore every single piece of my feedback and you would be fine. And to your point, she has discovered this process that works for her. Now, could I do it the way she does it? Not a chance. But that's because I've honed my specific process and what works for me. But Vanessa, before we wrap up, I do want to ask, I know we've had a lot of discussions in this episode, but what can we expect next from you in your author career?
I do have book 3 that I need to start writing. It is currently scheduled to come out next September. It is the dragon shifter that we meet in book 2. So you meet him in book 2. He's fantastic. I love him. He's a mercenary and he gets hired by a king to guard his daughter who's now been cursed. You learn about the curse in book 2 because these are interconnected. We meet people that come later. It's going to be an enemies to lovers, but kind of a one-sided. She wants to kill him and he falls first and hard and yearns a lot. I've written maybe one paragraph of her first chapter and that's it. But we have a cover for it. And that was fun to do before writing because we got to pick elements first, and now I get to figure out how to put them in the book.
Yeah.
So we will see how that goes. I am also I'm working on a secret project. Yeah, it's a secret. And Jordan's like, you need to actually keep this secret. He knows me and I suck at secrets. Okay. She's like, well, this should just be a no pressure project. I was like, do you know me at all? Like, there's nothing that's no pressure. Yeah. Everything has pressure. She's going to be so mad at me because I spilled the beans. She's like, don't tell anybody.
My final question to you, though, is if anyone is listening to this episode is vibing with you and your books, what's the best way that they can connect with you and support you?
Instagram is the best way to connect. I'm there all the time. I have a small Patreon that I have the best people on there who are just the sweetest. And I don't know why they stay because I can't write a lot of extra stuff, but they are just so nice about supporting me and they listen to me ramble and I send them art prints and they get free copies of the books and they get quarterly merch. Like the highest tier gets special merch that only they get. I don't even order it for myself, which is sad. I should probably order myself some stuff, but yeah, that's Instagram and Patreon. Those are my 2. And the newsletter. I'm trying to get better. I send that out monthly. So
I read your newsletters religiously, so please, you have me waiting for those. So I will pop your links in the episode description. But I just want to say, Vanessa, I have loved talking to you today, and I've loved just understanding your thought process and also your experience in this industry because you You know what you're talking about, and I love
I
learning.
hope I know, but I don't know.
Hold on.
Such a pretty puppy.
Dad is going. Hold on. Bye, babe. Dad is going, and she's like, "What the fuck? Dad's leaving." We're now getting the bum wiggle dance because
That's so cute.
he's leaving. She's very confused. But okay, let me say that. Pops, Pops, we're gonna go now. Okay, we're gonna go now. I'm finishing up. So she is my everything. She's basically my child. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by her now. Sasha, baby, come here, go. I'm sorry.
I think you need to keep all this in, like all the puppy stuff. Just keep it all in.
Come here. Oh, you're getting such a big girl now. Oh yes, okay.
Oh, she's so cute.
You know, she had this meetup with her siblings on Sunday, and it was chaos. And we learned that our sweet little angel baby is actually the bully of the litter. Yeah, that was not something that I expected at all. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time. I have loved talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.